Revenge films.
I'm Scott, a corporate worker in my 30s, single. I won't have a girlfriend anytime soon, but I like my work and can't complain. I just have one big problem at work. That's Michael, who treats me like an enemy, takes credit for the work I've done, and badmouths me in the office. He would push me off a cliff if I wasn't looking. For example, I've been working on this project with a client for over 6 months. On the day we were supposed to sign the contract, Michael pushed me to do some work while he voluntarily went over to the meeting and signed the contract as if it were his accomplishment. Of course, I confronted him about it, but he had his own way of manipulating managers into thinking it was his accomplishment. On top of it, he told my client bad things about me, as if I had spread a bad rumor about them. As a result, they changed the contact person to someone else. Michael wasn't very competent, but he had his way of climbing the corporate ladder. He was good with words and manipulative. While I was working until late, planning the following day's schedule, collecting and organizing the documents, Michael would go out to socialize with the managers, and they seemed to like Michael without knowing his true nature. Meanwhile, the more I tried to work honestly, the less time I had, and even if they invited me to go out for a drink with them, I could hardly make it to social occasions with them. In time, they judged me as antisocial, but I couldn't do anything about it. Regarding this project in which Michael stole the credit from me, the managers concluded that it was my antisocial nature that caused the client to prefer Michael, who was more sociable and customer-oriented. Now, it was the year-end season. I was busy as usual, but my honest work was finally rewarded and recognized as my business performance showed steady improvement. I was content. Then there was Michael. "Hey, could you pick a restaurant for our year-end company party?" If I remember correctly, that was his job. I saw the manager, Mr. Miller, ask him to do so directly. So I said, "But he asked you." "I'm swamped." No, I have 3 times more to do than you." But before I said anything more, he walked straight up to Mr. Miller and told him, "Mr. Miller, Scott said he knew a good place for the year-end party. It should be good." So I couldn't say that I didn't have time for it in front of him, and that ended up being my task. I was extra busy this time of the year, and now I have to choose the restaurant? It was overwhelming. I can't just pick any restaurant. It should be reasonably appropriate for the occasion, and people's preferences have to be taken into account. So I first figured out how many employees were going, and then asked them if they had any preferences. But when I was ready to make a reservation, it was a busy time for restaurants too, and many of them were already completely booked. Michael must have known about this. Year-end parties need to be booked months in advance. I was in deep trouble. Then someone helped me, and I was able to book a restaurant. On the day of the party, I gave them the info about the restaurant and headed there early to make sure everything would go smoothly. But after the start time passed, no one showed up. Not just 1 or 2, but none of them showed. There must be something wrong. So I called up one of my colleagues and found out something outrageous. "We got a message from Michael. The restaurant has changed, right? We're all here and the party's already started." At that moment, I had no doubt that Michael had set me up. He told me that they got a message about the change of the restaurant at the last minute. Of course, I was the only one who didn't get that message, and now they're all at the new place that Michael told them about. I immediately called Michael. "What did you do? Explain it to me." In his grinning tone, he said, Oh, I forgot to tell you. I read some bad reviews about the restaurant you picked, so I asked my acquaintance's restaurant to make some room for us tonight. But you can enjoy all the food you ordered. Of course, you have to pay for it yourself. I was so angry to hear this that I almost broke the phone I was holding. But I tried to sound calm and told him, "You know what you're doing?" About what? The restaurant I booked is owned by the CEO's niece and her husband. What? Because you dumped this on me too close to the date, I couldn't book any restaurant. I was in trouble when the CEO passed me by, so I told him about the problem and he said his niece runs a restaurant, and they squeezed their schedule for us. You're making that up. You're trying to get back at me or something, but I'm not going to be fooled by you. You'll see it for yourself. The CEO will be here any minute. Michael sounded panicked and hung up the phone. I called back to the colleague I was talking to earlier and told him that this restaurant was still good and ready to have us. It's a newly opened place, right? I saw a 4.5-star review with it. I want to check it out. I'll be there soon. After that conversation, it was fast. One after another, employees left the restaurant Michael picked to come over here. This place is much better than the other one. Yeah, the food took a long time to come, and to be honest, it wasn't good. Eventually, all of them came to this restaurant. When Michael got here last, he went pale when he saw the faces of the executives. Do you want to explain, Michael? You were in charge of this in the first place, weren't you? Then you pushed it to somebody else and changed the place at the last minute without notifying the restaurant. No, this is just a misunderstanding. In what way? I saw Scott desperately looking for a restaurant. Why did only Scott not get the message of the change? It's very fishy. Why don't you take responsibility and have a party alone in the restaurant you booked? Please leave. He said it straight to Michael and kicked him out. After Michael left, the party went well, and they all seemed to enjoy themselves. The food was excellent. Also, they realized the bad things they heard from me about Michael all turned out to be his harassment toward me. As for Michael, after he was kicked out of this restaurant and went back to the other, he got an enormous amount of the bill since he ordered so much. Also, the CEO pointed out Mr. Miller and Mr. Coors misjudged Michael and were manipulated by him. The two were demoted as a result. On the other hand, I was recognized for my hard work for all these years and rewarded as a team leader. After the party, Michael came into the office, but the heads of the department who backed him were gone, receiving cold looks from others, revealing his complete inability to do his job. After they learned his true nature, they stopped talking to him and eventually he resigned. If not for the CEO, I wouldn't be here today. Now that Michael is gone, I feel that my work is rewarding as I receive more and more fair evaluations. I heard the story about Michael spread to the other companies. Even with his smooth tongue, it sure will be a tough restart for him if there is one. But he deserves it.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.